1 year after the bodies were discovered, a new police commissioner was installed. James Burke was held for reducing crime in Suffolk County, but also for running the department his way, including beating a suspect who stole a duffel bag from his truck, something he was ultimately sentenced to prison for in 2016. We spoke to the man who took over for him. Former Suffolk County DA and Police Commissioner Tim Sinai says he inherited a department in turmoil, but quickly got it focused on the bodies found at Gilgo Beach. Responding to a Washington Post article that claimed infighting between him and his police officers delayed an arrest even more, he told us the FBI could not work with the lead investigator, refused, and once he was removed, the case finally moved forward. Back with us right now is Josh Zeman, who filmed the documentary The Killing Season, who asked why these murders had not been solved 5 years after finding the bodies. Also with us, Rob Trotta, a 25-year veteran of the department, currently a member of the Suffolk County Legislature, representing District 13, who has been critical of the department's delay in making an arrest. To both of you, thank you for being with us. Rob, explain to me your take on what took so long and what went wrong, Rob?
Blatant incompetence. The county executive, Steve Ballone, put a man in place he shouldn't have. He was already received letters, the county executive did, that this gentleman, Burke, had sex with prostitutes in his police car when he was a sergeant, and he still made him the chief. So what do you
slow down, Mr. Trotta. What did you just say?
I said that the chief of police, the county executive, knew that the chief of police had sex with prostitutes in his police car on duty in uniform when he was a sergeant, and he still made him the chief of police. So middle America can never understand the fact that the widespread corruption that went on in Suffolk County, and to some extent still goes on today.
What do you mean to some extent still goes on today?
Look, people don't realize in Suffolk County, it's one of the highest paid police departments in the country. And it's unconscionable. It's embarrassing for me to find out that they had this truck, this, great lead. What's the best lead you have? The last person who was seen with the person who's dead. They had a description of the man. They had his truck, and they didn't follow through. I mean, Aaron Colton hit the nail on the head before. You can take all the DNA, you can take all the cell site analysis. Without that truck, you have nothing. And they had that truck very on in the investigation.
The truck parked outside in front of Heuermann's house about 7 or 8 minutes from the bodies. The truck.
Yes, it was on Google Maps. If you went down the block, you saw the truck parked in front of the house. It's unconscionable this went on, that this happened so long. I feel bad if people were killed during 2010 to 2023, what it is. That's a very, very unfortunate thing. It should have never, ever happened. This was not a hard case to solve.
Josh, you hit that really hard in your documentary. What do you make of what Trotta is saying?
Trotta and I spoke about this 7 years ago. We couldn't believe the level of corruption that was going on, and we couldn't believe how it related to this case. Look, it's really easy to Monday morning quarterback a police investigation, but I think in this case, what we really need to be talking about is accountability. Tim Sinai, who you spoke to earlier, he said that DA Spoda and Police Chief Burke, they actively obstructed this case, and I think we really need to dig into that.
But why? Why would they actively obstruct a mass murder, a serial murder investigation? What's in it for them? I'm not talking about having sex with a hooker in your car. I'm talking about a serial murder case.
They don't want the FBI, and they don't want the FBI looking at what they're doing, and they don't want it to come out that there have been a lot of dealings with sex workers, by Burke. And so as a result, they wanted it to go away. They wanted to push it under the rug.
So Trotta, true, false. The last thing they wanted is the FBI nosing around the police HQ and finding out what's been going on with sex workers in the cruiser out back.
There's a lot of more background to that. the chief was being investigated for a variety of different things. You know, he didn't, and you have to understand something. Jimmy Burke was in charge of the DA's office at this point. So the investigation from homicide was also run through the DA's office. Do you know the bosses, the chief of detectives, the inspector in charge of homicide had no idea about this truck? They only learned about it when he was arrested. These are people that should have been told about this right away. I'm certain that Burke probably told them, listen, you report to me, I'm going to be the chief in a year or two. They're going to be out of jobs, which they were. He fired them all. And you got to report to me. During this time, he beats the guy up who stole the sex toys. He's not really concerned with prostitutes because he patronizes prostitutes.
Exactly.
It's a comedy of errors that went on here in Suffolk County.
Derek Levasseur is joining us. Weigh in, Derek.
Yeah, Rob, I wanted to double back to the avalanche because I agree with you. That's the critical component of this case. And I think there's been some misconceptions about when Rex was identified. Some people have said they knew about him for years, but if you take the press conference and what you said, what it appears like to me is that in 2010, when Amber Costello went missing, they took a report for this gentleman that matched Rex's description, and then they had the vehicle. So they've had this report since 2010. But it wasn't until 2022 that another investigator came in and said, hey, listen, no one ever followed up on this. Is that the correct take here? Is that really what happened? Because I agree with you. Without that report, you don't get the DNA, you don't get anything else because you need that truck to connect Rex first before you can do anything else.
Yeah, the FBI did the analysis of about a 10 or 12 square block area this phone calls were being made. You know, there's some information that I know on the inside that I can't talk about, but I think that rest assured, this should have been solved earlier. This is something, you know, guess what? You know it's by the train station. Why not put 10 cops on a train and see who's 6'6" or 6'4" going on the train? You know, I don't think that was done. There's a variety of things that could have been done and should have been done that, you know, clearly weren't. And getting back, you know, to the whole Tim Seeley thing, you know, while he's probably a nice guy, he had no experience. He was a prosecutor for 2 years. He was a political hack who lost an election for a county legislator, and they made him the police commissioner. And by the way, you know who his chief was for a while? Jimmy Burke. For 18 months, Jimmy Burke worked underneath him when he was the police commissioner. So then he becomes the DA politically, right? Runs for office, wins. He has no experience in homicide investigations. He doesn't have the background to know, you know, did you do a lawman search and look into every detail of it? It wasn't until Ray Tierney comes in, who's, you know, 25 years as a prosecutor, comes in and puts everything in place. And thank God there was a very competent state trooper, female state trooper, who apparently dug through the paperwork, found this vehicle, did some quick research, and before you know it, they had the car.